Welcome to the digital airways of Storyophonic. We're proud to introduce you to the members of a very special community. Those in the spotlight and behind the scenes, the people and the personalities who make the music happen. I'm Dan Kimpel. We're proud to continue with our mission to entertain and inform you as we reveal tips and tales from deep inside the music industry. The mission of the Recording Academy is to recognize excellence in the recording arts and sciences, cultivate the well-being of the music community, and ensure that music remains an indelible part of our culture. As Vice President of Membership and Industry Relations, Kelley Purcell, recognized as an executive honoree by Billboard's Women in Music, is at the front lines as the organization marks historic progress in diversity, reflecting new demographics, genres, and an inspired membership that includes the most prolific and celebrated creators in music. Kelley Purcell is our guest today on Storyophonic. Hey, Kelley, thanks for coming over.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
And you told me you live close, correct?
I do. I'm a Valley girl. We're right in Sherman Oaks, down the street.
Beautiful day it is today in Valley Glen, California, where we are.
It is. I'm from the East Coast originally, but I've lived in LA for 18 years, and it's the weather. It's hard to leave.
You think the weather's better here than in Teaneck, New Jersey?
Yes. Absolutely. No hate to Teaneck. I love Teaneck. But the weather in LA, you can't beat.
Great. Well, as we noted, you are with the Recording Academy. You have been with the Recording Academy for a while, and now we have sort of a new executive position that you are in. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do kind of on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. Yes. Well, I'm the Vice President of Membership and Industry Relations, and I can talk about my role for a long time, so give me the hook whenever you need to. But at the core of what I do, membership is really the core of the Recording Academy, right? So most people know the Grammy Awards, they know the show. And similar to the Oscars, the Grammy is a peer-voted award. So I think it's what makes it one of the more special awards in music because it is your fellow peers that are voting on this Grammy. And every award means something different, right? They're all special. Billboard Award is a chart award, iHeart, an audience award, just different things mean different things. And the Grammy, when you receive it on that stage, you know that it was your fellow creators that said, hey, your record of the year, your song of the year. So I start there because my job is really cultivating the membership, those people that are both voting on the Grammy Awards as well as our professional members who don't vote, but they support music creators, and our student members who are Grammy U, student and emerging members as well. So my job is really to find those great members. We have an outreach team. I call them like a mini A&R. They're going out there into the industry, finding, those next few folks that are qualified to join the Recording Academy. And then once they join the Academy, we really want to make sure that they are engaged members. Certainly in the Grammy process, that's the first thing I'll say to a member is make sure you're voting every fall, open up that ballot. We want them to be good citizens of that process. But in general, right, we want our members to be engaged in our overall mission of making the world a better place through music. And there's so many different ways that they can do that. So I hope that members join and become connected to something even deeper than just the Grammy. The Grammy's important, but also everything we do to make sure that there can be Grammys forever. There can be a future for this industry.
As you mentioned, most people know the Grammy, but there are so many things that the Academy does that I don't know if everybody knows. And some of the things that you work with, some you do not. I mean, we talk about a little bit about Music Cares, music in the schools. And I just saw Grammys on the Hill where I go to Washington and do work on behalf of music creators there, which is very interesting.
Yep.
So that's a beautiful thing. Part of what we really notice about the Academy is the diversity, inclusion, and advocacy.
Yes.
And especially recently, I mean, I saw the numbers. I saw an article on Billboard, and it had just incredible statistics having to do with this. But the number of women amongst the new members, the number of groups that were not represented previously. Now they really seem to be.
Yes, it's something we're really proud of, and thank you so much. I'm glad you noticed. The Recording Academy trustees joke and call me the data diva because I love to bring the numbers. But we're really proud of our diversity efforts, particularly in the last 5 or so years. We've been really intentional about increasing women representation, increasing people of color representation, really understanding persons with disabilities, the LGBTQ plus community, and just making sure that our membership is as representative of the diverse music community that we're always trying to advocate for. And I've seen firsthand the results of what we do are better when our membership is more diverse. It's our members that are driving the Grammy process. They're driving the decisions that we make. So we want to make sure that everybody is represented and everybody has a voice. So that's been something we've been really intentional about, increasing our women's representation. We're about 98% of the way towards the goal that we set for adding 2,500 new voting women to the Recording Academy over the last few years. So we're almost there on that. And working with our DE&I team very, very closely to just make sure that we're being as intentional and proactive in those efforts as we can. So thank you again for noticing.
Of course, part of our mission with Stereophonic is sort of along those lines in a way, and especially when it comes to women on the technical side of the business, right. Women producers, women recording engineers, women doing things that you don't typically think of women necessarily doing.
Exactly.
And it's a long way to go on that side, but it's definitely a brighter situation than it used to be. So.
Absolutely. And, again, the Recording Academy, we're so dedicated to increasing those numbers. We commissioned a study, a Women in the Mix study, a couple years ago now, I think, just to really dig into the issues that women face in this industry. And, I think women have faced issues across many industries. So some of them are consistent in music, whether that's childcare or, things that women have to deal with. So we want to play a role in helping to solve those issues. Obviously, we're not by ourselves in this, right? We want to work with the record labels. We want to work with publishers. We want to work with the entire industry. But whatever we can do to shine a light and bring awareness to what those issues might be, and not just for women, but for any underrepresented group, I think that we're in a great position at the Recording Academy to do that and to help lift all boats.
Great. And it certainly is the most visible organization in that realm. So, as well it should be. We had Harvey Mason Jr. as a guest here on the show.
Love that guy.
Yeah, right. I had originally interviewed Harvey Mason Jr. as a member of the Underdogs as a producer.
Oh, wow.
So
Yes, yep.
I knew him that way before,
right.
And so it's been interesting for me to watch, as it's always interesting for me to watch people's career paths
Absolutely.
as they go.
Absolutely.
Sometimes people will use an expression of their career pivoted. Here, even within our studio situation, all of our careers have pivoted in certain ways, yes. as it is, and I know your career as well definitely took a pivot. If my research serves me well, you went to Harvard, correct?
I did.
Yes,
I did.
yes.
Undergrad, yep.
Yeah, right. And economics, was that?
Yes, you are great at research, Dan. Yes, I was an economics major, an economics nerd. Well, and it's funny you use the word pivot because it was really the first pivot was in college. Yeah. It was in college because I grew up, my dad was a CPA, my mom had worked in various business functions, human resources, sales, etc. So they were very business oriented, although they loved music. My brother and I always remind them, you had music playing all the time, guys, come on. But very business oriented. They were entrepreneurs, just very focused in that way. So their dream for me, their destiny for me was to be some sort of CEO of something, get over there to Wall Street and kill it, right? So that was my destiny. And I went to Harvard with that in mind. And Harvard didn't have a specific business administration major, but economics was the closest one. So, and they made us choose our freshman year, which I'm glad they don't do anymore, because what do you know as a freshman? Nothing. But anyway, freshman year, I just kind of checked the box of economics. I'm going to go to Wall Street eventually. That's what I need to do. However, the more I grew in just myself and, the more I experienced on campus, I really credit Harvard for me understanding my love for music and my love for the arts and my love for culture. In high school, I was more of an athlete. I ran track, I played tennis, so excelled in those areas. And I thought I would carry over into college, my athletic career. But I ended up feeling a bit burnt out. And I knew I always loved singing. I always loved being a part of music, but I never took it seriously. And it wasn't until college that I started, I joined choirs before, but really dug in on choir life. I was in several different groups. We went on tours. I helped produce the Black Arts Festival on campus, just really got involved in arts and culture and music in some kind of way. And it just lit me up. It just lit me up inside. And I got to maybe junior, senior year, and I was doing everything, quote unquote, right. I got my internship at the consulting firm, and, the internship leads to the full-time job. And I had just checked all the boxes, okay? But realizing what was really lighting me up, what was really just my passion points, and it was around music and the arts. And so I think senior year, I just kind of, if I have to pick a career, if I have to do something for the rest of my life, well, I want to really love it. I don't want to feel like I'm just doing it and then waiting for the weekend. So at that point, realized that I needed to figure out what that path looked like. And I always tell students, you're not going to know the full path. You're not, right? So just take the next best step that you can, letting your heart and your desires drive you forward.
At what point did you do the internship at Island Def Jam?
That was right after I graduated. So I had a weird post-graduation season because I did get a full-time job as a consultant, which a lot of, Harvard grads will get. They're going to med school, law school, or going to some form of business, investment banking or consulting, right? So I had the job, the right job. But they let me defer for a year. So essentially, I could take what kids call a gap year now. I didn't know that was the term then. But I took a year off, and my parents very graciously let me live at home in New Jersey. And so that was the year that I interned at Island Def Jam and had a great time. I started in publicity in the fall, and then I transitioned to marketing in the spring. And that was the same year that I wanted to just do some of my own music, too. So I started working with a local producer and a manager that was interested, and he sent me on auditions and things like that. So really kind of testing the waters as to what it would mean to work in music, because I had no idea. Zero clue.
I think one of the things that I detect is that you were aware kind of early on of the deeper meaning of music, as opposed to just its commercial value, which was music to heal, music to celebrate, music from the church, music for different purposes.
Yes.
And I noted that you were part of a performance group called Shattered Glass. It was a performance, and that sounded like a really interesting thing, combining music and poetry, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You said it so well, Dan, that early on, understanding the value and the transformative power of music certainly was in my soul. And really, for me, I'm a very spiritual person, so being in a gospel choir and letting music sort of drive me closer to God was really special. And what's hard, and I think a lot of artists will go through this, is just then you're trying to figure out how to make a living, how to commercialize that, because it is so important to you. And so I left school just thinking, well, okay, how do I get into the commercial business of this all? Shattered Glass came several years later, when a friend of mine wrote a really fantastic book called Shairi's Journey from Darkness into Light by Chanel Curry, plug. Really fantastic book of poetry that talked about a woman's transformation out of a very abusive relationship into the light of her life, transitioning out of that relationship and finding a strength and a power within herself. And it's funny, Chanel's one of my best friends, and she showed me the book, and I'm more of I can get more into lyrics, musical lyrics, than like just straight ahead poetry. But when I read her book, I was enthralled. And it happened to come at a time in my life where I was going through transition as well, pivoting, as you said, right? And really trying to find what this new pathway was, coming out of, some hurtful situations myself. And everything about her poetry resonated. And I realized that I was writing music that I was like, this song, oh my God, I'm her. This song is about this. Oh my God, Chanel, this song's about this, So just seeing so many parallels. And Chanel is so brilliant because she was contemplating going on a book tour but I kind of want more dimensions to this book tour, et cetera. And she was like, I think it's musical. I think you're hitting on something. So long story short, we just spent many years cultivating what became a multimedia show. And it was her poetry intertwined with my music. And at first, it was just us playing off each other. You know, she would do a poem and I would do a song. But we realized that that was sort of becoming a show unto itself. And we had this character in mind that we were both two sides of. And we conceptualized actual stage props. You know, we conceptualized this character, this woman who had just moved into a place. And over the course of the show, you see it transform through the poetry, through the music, and then physically the space goes from being a mess to being this beautiful space where this woman now lives. So it became a stage show, and we're really, really proud of it. So thank you for asking about Shattered Glass.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, definitely.
No, that's great. That's great. It's interesting. The most effective stories have always been about transformation.
Yes.
You know, transformation is at the root of great storytelling. That's very interesting that you use that term.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, I think we were both going through that in our lives, so we could pour it out into that show. And that's the beauty of art, right?
Yeah, sure. You were in a group, Afrofusion kind of a band as well, correct?
Yes,
What was that experience like?
Oh, solfege,
Yes.
which, first of all, like I told you, I'm a nerd. We were all fellow nerds. And for anyone musical out there, you know what solfege means, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? And we added a U because we have soul. So musical nerds. Solfege predated Shattered Glass. So that was the group. But I ended up moving back to Boston from New Jersey. And Solfege, they had started as an all-guy group. It was, more kind of boys to men vibe. And we knew them. They were like our older brothers on campus. They were all part of the gospel choir that I was in. So we were all family. And they knew that I wanted to do music. I was kind of aching to figure that out. So I would go up and just do backgrounds. I'd travel up from New Jersey and do some backgrounds and help them out when I could. And then when it turned out that I was moving back to Boston, it was very organic, but they just kept writing me more parts. Why don't you sing this line? Why don't you come up to the front and sing this? Why don't you sing this song? So during my year off, I would just travel back to Boston and help them out. And when they found out I was moving back, it was helpful. And it was at the same time that the leader of the group had a vision to expand. As I mentioned, they were an all-guy group at first, more boys to men, but he really wanted to expand into more funk and hip-hop and just other things. And so having more female voices made sense to him. So long story short, because I was in Solfege for a while, and again, they were like family, ended up becoming one of the lead vocalists of that group. And it was an awesome experience because the leader of the group was from West Africa originally. He had lived around the world, but those were his roots. And so he had a vision to fuse more West African traditional music with what was going on in the West, R&B, hip hop, other types of rock as well. And so he took us back to Ghana, which was fantastic. And the first summer we made a record and we worked with musicians there, really got those authentic high life, vibes into our songs. And then the second summer we went back, we recorded a music video. And we were just all around Accra, Ghana, on the backs of trucks and with our crew and everything, recording this video. And what was really fun was the barriers to entry are not quite as high when you go to a West African country or another country. And so just the story of us coming from the U.S. to do this and their native son coming back to do this got us on press outlets, which was really neat. And we got to, we were basically on their version of TRL at the time. I'm dating myself. But anyway, TRL, we were on their video countdown. We delivered the video up there and it was like Beyonce, Usher, Solfege, number 3. So we just had a blast. And coming back to the U.S., and that experience still resonates with me. I credit my former bandmates for having that vision. We came back to the U.S. with a real story, right, to tell the press here. And we ended up doing really well in Boston. We were selling out venues. We got a spread in the Boston Globe, just really wanting to understand who was this group and what were you guys doing. And then we ended up getting an agent, a booking agent. So we started doing college tours, which was also a lot of fun. And that's what eventually brought me to LA, because we had a management opportunity out here. And what I thought was going to be 6 months, maybe a year, I'll try out LA. I was a very East Coast gal, okay? I mean, LA, no hate, but it might as well have been China. Like, I don't know LA. But I thought maybe it would be 6 months. We'll see what this management company is talking about. Has now become 18 years and counting. So my parents still ask me when I'm coming home, and I'm like, I don't know. The weather's really good out here.
Yeah, LA has a way of doing that, because every day is kind of the same. Everybody lies about their age. The radio never tells you what time it is. It takes into this kind of flow.
That's true. That's true. Kind of forever young in LA. I'm fine with it.
I am. Yes, I think you're in good company here with us as well. With that one.
Well,
Kelley.
and let me just say, this East Coast girl transformed. I have come to really love LA, and the first year and a half, I hated it. I'm not going to lie, and lots of ups and downs in my personal life anyway, but I didn't have many friends and I didn't have family and, my roots were not here. So LA is a tough city at first, but I've come to love it because, and I think this is the artist in me, the dreamer in me, everyone in LA has some kind of dream, some kind of story that they're telling. And I think that's really fascinating. And that you can go to a coffee shop and hear somebody's script that they're working on and just get so much passion. And I remember being in Boston and telling people that I was a musician. And you get the question of like, oh, that's nice, but what do you really do? Right? Like, are you a lawyer? Are you a teacher? Right. You're in LA, and maybe you'll say your day job, right? Like, oh, I'm a teacher. Oh, that's nice, but what are you really wanting to do? Right? Like, that's LA. And I think that's more of the core of who I am, that artist and dreamer. So I love LA. It's definitely become home.
I'm so glad you shared that story with our listeners and with us. And one of the reasons I asked about that, your background, is knowing how much that contributes to the emotional intelligence which is necessary to deal with creative people, especially music people. Because if they don't think you're coming from where they're coming from, right, it can be a real cold kind of day.
Absolutely.
For all of us who might have taken a pivot. The fact that for myself, that I wrote songs, I don't write songs now, but I still think like a songwriter, and it allows me to interview people who write songs.
Yes. Yes.
And not resent them. I mean, just to use that knowledge to illuminate them. And I think with the Academy now, you're obviously in a pivotal position to do that for creators as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's many of us at the Academy that are musically inclined or musicians. I think it really helps us do our job well. Having that empathy, I know where our members are. I get it. My husband is a producer and engineer and a touring musician as well. Yes. So the struggles that he has, I feel them very personally when our members talk about it as well, because I know that life. So you're absolutely right in saying that. And I feel incredibly privileged because I do have what you might call a hybrid personality, left brain, right brain. I have both of that going on in me. And so I think that I've always been drawn to both being an artist, creating art, and performing. I love performing, but also the administrative pieces, the business pieces. How do you market, promote? What's the strategy behind it all? I love all of that. So I feel incredibly privileged to work at the Recording Academy where I get to support artists. And like you said, I get to listen to their stories and really try to figure out how the Recording Academy can be of service to all of these people. And my ultimate goal, and I realize this more and more as I just live and work, is I want to make sure that people understand the importance of arts in our society, and particularly for artists, because it's so hard. It's such a tough road, whether, you're trying to make a living, trying to put food on the table, trying to really focus your career on your artistry, which is a tough and competitive industry. And I just want artists to know that they are important, no matter if they've won a Grammy or not, no matter if they've got a #1 Billboard song. I got to say this on another panel that I was on, that on every street corner in America, in every school, in every place of worship, music is important. So I want artists to know and feel that, regardless of the scope of how many people they've reached, because whoever they've reached, it's important.
Good. Yeah, it's true. It's almost built into our language. There's an old phrase, "yours for a song," which if you actually examine what that means, it means yours for nothing. It means yours of no value, and that's wrong because there's nothing more powerful than a song.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
So yeah. Oh, I love this. So the musical culture. So we're talking about women in the non-traditional roles in music as well. We mentioned that earlier. I attended a panel at Musicians Institute a couple weeks ago, and Bonnie McIntosh was on the panel. She's a musician, and she plays with Post Malone. And she said when she shows up for sound check, whatever, they think she's a dancer.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Because she looks like she could be,
Right.
but she is not. And she's not, I'm not the dancer.
Right.
So just thinking of women as vocalists as opposed to instrumentalists. And again, we're seeing such a great transition right now. We're seeing artists like Conan Gray, whose band is all women.
Amazing.
And there are bands like that where we see Prince did that early on.
Trailblazer. Yeah,
Wendy
sure
and
was.
Lisa and Sheila E. I mean, come on.
Definitely.
So all of that is so important to see.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And I think that, part of the study that we commissioned, and even beyond the study, I think we know we really want to work harder to make the industry a safer place for women. I think that women, look, I'm biased, I'm a woman, right? But women are so talented. We are so talented in so many different capacities. Whether that's as an instrumentalist, whether that's as a producer, engineer behind the boards. But if those spaces that need to be occupied by women are not safe, whether it's late nights at studios and these places don't have HR teams or places where you can complain, right? Then no, you'll have decades where we won't see that talent emerge. And that's why I'm so grateful that you mentioned Prince, because he was a trailblazer in making sure that talent emerged even behind the glass and behind the board. So I definitely am passionate about making sure that spaces can be more inclusive of women so that talent can blossom and emerge. Because there's so many different talents. There's a young gal at our church. She is a senior now, senior in high school. And we were so grateful, my husband and I, because our sound engineer started mentoring her, I think about 3 years ago. And we were like, go ahead, Amelia. She's behind the board. She's getting all the live stuff working. And I don't have that skill set. I'm like, I bow down to her. I'm like, you go. Keep building that. But we got to mentor these young ladies at an early age so that they know at 13 and 14 and 15 years old that they can get behind that board and they can do exactly what that male sound engineer is doing. So we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen, and it's exciting, but we got to push it.
We'll be right back after this. This season of Stereophonic is sponsored by Isotope, making innovative products that inspire and enable people to be creative using AI-powered tools for mixing, mastering, audio repair, and more. And by Odyssey, the leaders in planar magnetic technology. Odyssey delivers the best headphones money can buy. Odyssey is uncompromised audio. One of the areas where I noted it early on that was more women intensive was music publishing. And so in my course as a journalist, I talked to many publishers who were women, and I finally asked that question. And it had to do sometimes with the emotional fragility of songwriters.
Oh, wow.
That they could maybe understand that a little bit better, maybe facilitate things through that emotional intelligence that they would have with songwriters who they have issues. Because it's a hard thing, the songwriting. It's a hard thing.
It is hard. You're wearing your emotions on your sleeve, I think you bring up a good point, Dan, women do tend to over-index maybe on that emotional intelligence that's necessary. And not to put men down at all. I mean, I think there's plenty of male producers and engineers who say, oh, my job is part producer, part therapist.
Yeah,
that's so
that's
true. That's so true. And there's certainly many men that are good at that. But women are uniquely positioned to be good at that as nurturers, kind of natural nurturers. So I think that makes sense what you're saying, that women would be inclined to help songwriters and creatives in that way.
Yeah, and in my experience, women sometimes are tuned a little higher telepathically or intuitively and might detect things that other people don't see as much.
Totally.
So it's good. We all about the women here at Stereophonic. Look in that booth. There's a bunch of women in there.
I love it. They rock.
So talking about role models coming up in the business, were you around female executives that you could observe in the music business?
Yes and no. So my first role models were definitely my parents.
Yeah.
Shout out to Paul and Shelley. They were just I got my work ethic from them. They were such hard workers, entrepreneurs, always trying to figure out how to expand our resources and get out there. So, they encouraged me to apply to Harvard, myself and my brother. My brother, he's the real nerd. He's really smart. And he was a science guy, et cetera. He knows I call him this to his face. It's fine. But he went to Harvard first. And I really didn't think I would get in. I thought, oh, that's Kyle's thing, whatever. But they made me apply. They were like, look, the worst thing that can happen is they say no, right? And I think I've kept that mentality. Just go for it. Just go for it. So they were my first role models for sure. I will say, so my career has been more in general arts administration. Mm-hmm. And so I did start as an intern at Island Def Jam, but then, my next job was at the Office for the Arts at Harvard, and then Gold Star Events, And so what's interesting is, so I'll give you a woman role model that's sort of, I don't know her, but I certainly look up to her, and that's Oprah Winfrey. Okay, I love Oprah. And, we all know she's amazing for many different reasons. For me personally, I love how she balances, and I told you about the balance in my own brain, right? Balance is being an executive and an artist. She's an actress. She produces films. So to me, that's a divine balance right there, and I really appreciate that about her. But I will say, speaking of just shouting out the men in my life, mm-hmm. I've had some really great male bosses too, both male and female bosses, and some to this day that are still my mentors and that I can still call on. So I'm grateful to say that I've had a mix of male and female bosses that I could look up to. My current boss is amazing at the Recording Academy, that I could look up to, that I could ask questions, and really lucky that I just remain friends with these people. And I'll still call my boss from 2004 to ask him questions. So I'm grateful for that.
This came in conversation with a recent guest, and we were talking about advocacy from men. There are male advocates who are very tuned into the progress of women, yes. and are very cooperative and nurturing under those situations.
Yes, absolutely. I'll shout out my husband. He's one of them. And listen, I mean, I use the word balance a lot, but we need each other. Yeah. We need each other. And, I'm not really for bashing men, because we all have to work together in this life. And so I really appreciate those men that are advocates for us. And we also need to be advocates for those, for men as well, and work together in harmony.
Yeah. That's been my experience. The biggest things that ever happened to me in my career were always supportive women.
Wow.
Women pushed me forward.
Amazing.
And raised me up, and so I was always very grateful for that.
It's awesome.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I get to interview you. So
hey, here I am.
There are challenges, though. There are challenges to this, and some of this is the perception. There's certain areas, genres of music maybe, that are a little tougher in that regard. To break through, and it's interesting, And I think early on there was a perception sometimes of women in the music business were just tough as nails because they kind of had to be.
Right.
So that perception.
Yes.
So I think that's breaking down now, where I think
so
it's
too.
Less. But yeah, there was definitely a time when.
I think so too, and I think that's true even beyond music. I've definitely seen women that, felt like they had to fight and claw their way up into upper echelons of really any business, and develop that sort of tough as nails exterior. But I do think that's breaking down.
Yes. Educational opportunities. So do you have the opportunity to speak to students and things that are coming to the music business?
Yes. Through our Grammy U program, which we are so proud of. Shout out to my colleague, Jesse Allen, who runs Grammy U. I joke with students that I meet now. I'm like, I really wish I had Grammy U when I was in college. I told you I came out at zero clue. Yeah. But we are able to provide a window into what it means to work in the music business. And there's so many facets to it. And I think, again, that was a gap in my knowledge, where I knew I loved music. And the only thing I knew, because my parents weren't in the music business, I didn't know anything about it. The only thing you really see are those major artists, right? So I saw Beyonce, I saw Alicia Keys, and I'm like, okay, I guess I should do that. But if you don't know about jobs at the Grammys or jobs in music supervision or music editing for film and these are fascinating careers, fascinating. But if you don't know about it, how do you start down that path? So that is what I love about Grammy U is we really try to expose the students to all these different facets of what it means to work in the music business. And, we talk about mentoring young women and making sure they understand what it means to be a sound engineer and a producer and all these things. So I'm very proud of those efforts, and they continue for us.
I talked to a Grammy U student, and they shared with me that they went to a sound check, and I thought that was really interesting. That they would get to go to a sound check and then and then have dialogue about the setup and the way that it works backstage and all of those mechanisms.
Grammy U sound checks are magical.
That's so cool.
They are magical. I don't know if my other colleagues here, if you've been to one, but I will say my experience being at a sound check, we got to go. We brought our group of students. And I forget the artist now. This was several years ago. But there were several groups there. And some of them were more fan groups, right? Like, a mass from radio or something. They won a contest, whatever the case might be. And so the artist had to answer questions from all these different groups. And you guys, I was so proud of our Grammy U students because, where the fans are like, what's your dog's name and who are you dating and all this stuff. Our Grammy U students were like, well, what is the name of the gear that you're using? I mean, it was better questions than I can even think of, right? Or what does your sound guy do as you're preparing for this and that? And I was like, you go. They were so smart and they came prepared and they're really studying this thing. So sound checks are magical. And honestly, I see the students want to not just talk with the artists. They're fascinated by the artist journey for sure, but also talk to the manager, the person who booked the show, the person who's doing the sound engineer. They have really smart and insightful questions for the whole team. How cool is that?
Yeah.
It's so cool. So, yeah.
The numbers are so encouraging. Since you're a data person, I'm sure you're well aware of them, but the consumption of music is up worldwide.
Yes.
It's incredible. Touring is up some crazy number, like 28%. And just so the tour business on all levels of venues, from clubs to concerts to festivals, all of these opportunities exist that,
absolutely. Yes, the world is big. That's actually what one of my mentors said at a time in my career where I was trying to figure out what to do next and what was going to happen. And he said to me, I don't have answers for you, Kelley, but just know that the world is big. Know that the world is big and the world of music and the world of the arts is big. And I'll tell you that maybe 8 months later, if my memory serves, I got an email from a recruiter at the Recording Academy. And I had no idea what it meant to run membership at the Grammys. I knew the Grammys and we knew the show, and that's interesting. But membership, what? And it was this real recruiter, and she had a link to a job. And I read the job, and I was like, that has my name written all over it. Like, are you kidding me right now? So keeping your mind open, and we're talking about musical opportunities. You're so right. There's so many. There's a plethora of opportunity for these students.
It's interesting that they reached out to you with it because, sometimes the ideas that other people have for us are actually sometimes better than the ideas we have for ourselves. Sometimes it takes somebody kind of outside of our realm to go, you would be good at this gig.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in my case, not even aware of the gig. You know what I mean? And so, and this recruiter, I think she found me on LinkedIn. That's my LinkedIn testimony. Yeah. But saw my background, as a musician, as a touring artist. And then having worked in arts administration, I was particularly working with a membership organization at the time. And thank God for her. She put all those skills together and she said, you may do really well running the LA chapter of the Recording Academy. And I was like, sign me up, please. Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. So you had you were with Harvard Wood, right? So
yes, correct.
Is that a nonprofit?
It is a nonprofit. Yes, it's a nonprofit organization that's not funded by Harvard. It was started by 3 Harvard alums that were coming out of Harvard University as undergrads, really wanting to work in film, in the film business, and realizing that there were actually a good number of Harvard grads working in film and television, but they weren't really connected or very quietly connected. And she tells the story, Mia Riverton is the founder of Harvard Wood, but she tells the story of going to the Office of Career Services and saying, I really want to act and I really want to produce. And then looking at her like, yeah, we we can't help you. Here's a couple of names of people we know in California. Good luck, So she took that list and as the lore goes, just really connected with people and very organically built an email list, circa 1999, 2000, built an email list, started having mixers and just information exchange. And eventually it evolved into Harvardwood, which is a broader network now of Harvard alums that work in arts, media, and entertainment. So I was a member of Harvardwood, and we had opportunities to not just be on the email list, but promote our work. So I was promoting the work of Solfege and any events that we were doing. And then it turned out that they needed to hire someone. And I was their first paid staffer. It was part-time, but I was their first paid staffer, and it was a great job for me. And that is what really opened the door to being noticed by the Recording Academy, because I was doing similar work, but on behalf of Harvard alums that were working and across industry. So Harvardwood does a lot in film and television. And I had actually started some more musical programs for Harvardwood as well. And, music was my first love. So the Recording Academy noticed that work on behalf of that small community and said, well, I think you can serve this community. And I said, yes, I can.
We'll be right back after this. This season of Storyophonic is sponsored by Novation, creators of the iconic Launchpad and Launchkey MIDI controllers. Novation's creative instruments allow you to translate ideas into reality, channeling your artistic energy to create new music. Novation seeks to inspire. Visit novationmusic.com. Such a value with music education, music business education, not only obviously the knowledge that you get from the classes, et cetera, but the opportunities to be around other people who are ascended in their careers and being connected with people as they come up.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to think about beyond working with Beyonce, but baby, Beyonce don't need you.
Right. She's got plenty of team.
Yeah.
It's true.
Can you find the next Beyonce?
Exactly.
Or can you find the next the person's going to make that impression.
And you hit the nail on the head, because that's actually a big piece of advice we give to our Grammy U students, that it's wonderful to hear the panelists speak, and sure, if you can talk with them and maybe have an informational interview, that's fantastic. But the real value is in each other. The circles rise together, and you're making your friends right now, right here, right now. And those are the ones that are going to get you that first internship or that first whatever that, experience or opportunity will be. And I actually, I have personal experience with that, because getting that Island Def Jam internship was my friend from Harvard, was my fellow peer who, I can't remember what job she had gotten one summer, but she got a job in the industry. And she had heard about that one, knew that I was this, work kind of randomly trying to figure out music. So she's like, Kelley, why don't you do this internship? And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. So that was my friend. That was my peer, my fellow college student that helped get me that job. So that piece of advice is a crucial one that we share.
I guess being the kind of person other people want to see succeed would be another component of that as well. So if I was going to recommend somebody for like an internship, I'd probably do the person that was going to show up on time and do a really good job and make me look good.
Hey, exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Key, right?
Yeah.
And we remind students too, and you should be reminded of this your whole career, but that no job is too small.
Hey.
If someone needs you to organize the paper clips, well, do the heck out of organizing those paper clips. I remember actually being an intern at Def Jam, and I was such a nerd. There were other interns there. Man, they were cool, and they could go around the building, and they knew everybody's name and all this stuff. That was not me. I was the bookworm at my desk. You need me to do these expenses? No problem. I got you. Economics major, I got you, right? So super quiet. I really didn't think anyone noticed me that much. I knew I was interning for the coordinator or whoever it was, who was great, who I'm still connected to in this day. But the executives, I didn't think I had, I was kind of scared of them, right? So, but one day I remember one of the executives wanted someone to get her dry cleaning. And she came out of her office and she said, "Where's Kelley? I want Kelley to do it." And I remember sitting at my little desk like, what? Sure, no problem, And someone told me later, yeah, like she doesn't trust anyone else but you. And that just took me aback because I was like, I didn't even think she knew my name, But no job is too small. You're doing whatever it is you're doing, do it well, and you will ascend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great information. Yeah. I've been fortunate to speak at the Grammy Museum a number of times, and including a program with the Musicians Foundation at Musicians Institute, working with the Grammy Museum to talk to high school kids and junior high school kids. And on one really scary occasion, thinking you were going to talk to high school kids, but they were elementary school kids.
Oh. That is scary.
Really had to watch the language that day.
I definitely get it.
But in the Clive Davis Auditorium, which is a great place, and just seeing, and these kids just seem a million miles ahead of where I was when I was that age.
Yeah, I know. That's how I felt about those Grammy U students. I was like, you guys are dope. Like,
yeah, I think part of it too is also being an autodidact, being able to self-teach in certain ways, specifically with musical instruments and recording equipment. People, there are tutorials now, or people can watch YouTube videos and learn a lot of things, but it will not connect you to people.
Right. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. And I will say to that point, Grammy U recently just expanded to include folks that are not necessarily matriculating in college. Yeah. And I think that's such a great idea because so many more people are doing non-traditional routes of education, so many tutorials, so many people that are self-taught. My husband is similar to that. He's really good at teaching himself an instrument, or teaching himself, a new DAW or something like that, a new, producing program or whatever. He's really good at that. And you don't necessarily always need this fancy degree. And I say that having a fairly fancy degree, but you don't, especially in arts and music and entertainment. Like those people that kind of trust their intuition, trust their vision, are able to self-teach and be kind of motivated in that way. And then the last point you made, connecting with others, is really key as well. Yeah.
Your husband's name is CA, is
CA,
that correct?
Yes,
yeah.
CA.
Good.
Yep.
Shout out to CA.
Shout out to CA Purcell. He'll love that.
Very, very, very cool. Challenges, resolutions, it seems that things are moving forward. Can we make them move faster? How do we make them move faster?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. One of the things I actually said in a meeting last week was you also have to be careful not to rush. Yeah. We were specifically talking about membership and our demographics and everything. People they need to qualify. People need to still develop their skills and talents and all of these things. So there's some things I feel like that can't be rushed necessarily, or else the end product is not good. But I think that I'm so grateful to be at a time in our history, I guess I can say, where people are committed to change and they are committed to principles of DE&I. I know the Recording Academy is. And so wherever we can accelerate, we do our best. We just do our very best to do that and to push, press the gas as best we can. But there's a wisdom in figuring out or trying to understand the balance between, yes, accelerating, but also not rushing.
And speaking of wisdom and joy, you certainly bring a great deal of it with your light that you bring to us here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being our guest on Stereophonic. Thank you for listening to Stereophonic. Our shows are recorded, produced, and mixed by Lindsay Tomasic. Kim Strand is our production director. Our theme song is by Daddle Light Mine. Give us a review on your favorite listening platform. Subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm Dan Kimpel on Stereophonic.